Hello everybody, John Control back here again with another video, and today I bring you another segment or episode to my Who Would Win Battles series. Now, for those of you who don't know what is Who Would Win, or what is Who Would Win Battles, basically it's a segment on my YouTube channel where I take two fictional characters from movies, television, anime, cartoons, video games, and so on and so forth, put them in a fictional ring together, give you a brief synopsis of their powers and abilities, and give you a breakdown on how I think the battle would go, and then give you my overall winner based off my analysis, and of course, ask the obvious question, who do you think would win in a battle? Nonetheless, doing these specific battles on my channel has been a blast. Some of them were a lot of fun, some of them were stuff that I've always wanted to see, and some of them were awesome requests from you guys watching at home, so it's really awesome to just get feedback and get requests from, specific characters that I never thought I would ever, get to do or ever think to do. I mean, like, Hulk versus Broly, Chi-Chi versus Chun-Li, Wonder Woman versus Android 18, Silver Sonic versus Mewtwo, and so on and so forth. I mean, it's been so fun to do those type of battles that I never thought I could ever do or would want to do. I mean, these battles came out awesome, and some of them were just a blast to do. I mean, I loved doing the Chi-Chi versus Chun-Li fight. I thought that was pretty badass. I loved doing the Mojo Jojo versus Koba fight. I love doing the Wonder Woman versus Android 18 fight. All of it was just awesome. It was just a fun ride, and now it's come to an end. Now, when I say that, I don't technically mean that I'm going to stop doing Who Would Win Battles. What I mean by that is that this is going to be the so-called season finale of Who Would Win Battles, which basically means that this is going to be the end of the first wave of battles. I'm going to take a little break, not a long break. I'm not going to take like months, because this is way too much fun to fuck around on that kind of nonsense. But I'm definitely going to be taking a small break, and then I'm going to regroup and give you some more fucking awesome battles, and some of which are already getting requests, so that's pretty awesome in and of itself. But nonetheless, this fight has been something I've been wanting to do, and it's supposed to be the predecessor, the prelude, if you will, to my Goku versus Superman fight, which I have no idea what I'm going to do, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you are already just at the end of the, monitor, just thinking, when is this fucking little asshole going to do it? Well, I'm going to get to that. But nonetheless, Thor versus Gohan is next, and this is going to be the creme de la creme, the ending of the first wave of Who Win Battles, and then I'll give you some more battles in the second wave later on, which I'll tease at the end of this specific segment. Now, the Almighty Thor and Ultimate Gohan. These are two characters that, at first glance, you wouldn't think to actually put these two characters to battle against each other, but when you think about it, logistically, these guys are practically the same person. I mean, like, granted, they have various differences, and they come from two completely different worlds, but they're all kind of the same character. I mean, they're basically gods, they're super-powered intergalactic beings, they're superheroes from their respected universes, and they're prodigies. And they're the prodigal sons of the greatest and strongest characters from the respected universe. Thor being the son of Odin, who is obviously one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel Universe. And of course you have Gohan, who is the son of Goku, who is the greatest character ever, and the strongest, character of the DBZ universe. Depending, we haven't seen Fugatsu no F, but we're gonna know by then who is definitively the strongest character of the DBZ universe. Even though I'm going with Goku, of course. I mean, come on. We're not going to play here. I mean, granted, Vegeta might have... You know what? I'm going to just stop right there, because this isn't a video about Fugatsu no F. It's a video about Thor versus Gohan. Now, first off, before I get with this fight, I know what a lot of people are already going to be expecting is that I'm going to be heavily biased. And this video may be heavily influenced by my DBZ love, which you could take and think that it's being biased. Sure, why not? But at the end of the day, I'm just going to tell you who I personally think would win. and just give you a brief synopsis of their powers and abilities. But at the end of the day, I have to keep to who I personally think could win in a physical and mental fight against these two characters. And at the end of the day, I really have to say this out loud, and I know maybe this could, come into place in the outcome of this fight, but I just wanted to point this out right before I get started with the synopsis of the powers and abilities of these characters, which is, of course, I'm not really the biggest Thor fan. I mean, Thor is definitely, hands down, one of the strongest characters in the Marvel Universe. There's no denying that. He's the Superman of the Marvel Universe, practically. But at the end of the day, I've never been a huge Thor fan. I mean, I like the Marvel Universe. I enjoy their characters. Spider-Man, where's to go wrong there? The X-Men universe is always fantastic to watch. Fantastic Four, I was a huge fan of when I was a little kid. I mean, Silver Surfer, come on. Galactus, you have Deadpool, you have Iron Man, you have Captain America, who is hands down one of my favorite characters from that universe. And you just have awesome villains. But Thor was a character I never really was in love with. I always felt that his character was very out of the norm for Marvel's standards, and I always felt he was a lazy character. I always felt it was like just a character that Marvel didn't really need, and they definitely should have took more time in developing. And I always felt he was just stupid. He was just a very stupid nonsense character. Even to this day, I still don't really care about Thor. I mean, like, whenever I see him in an animated appearance, I don't really care. Whenever they bring out a new comic book of him or a reinvention of him, I really don't care. Hell, even the movies, the MCU, which have been dominating the box office and critics and fanboys alike, I really don't care about Thor in those movies. Chris Hemsworth, I can give two shits about. Chris Evans, however, I love the guy, but Chris Hemsworth, on the other hand, I'm not really a big fan of. I mean, the Thor movies, I never seen them, I never probably will, and his appearances on the Avengers and movies like that, the only reason I like that is because Hulk beats the shit out of him and punches him hysterically in that one moment. And that's pretty much the extent of my love for the character of the almighty Thor, the god from Asgard, if you will. But at the end of the day, I researched Thor, I did some digging on his powers and abilities, and I really tried to understand the lore and amazement of Thor into preparation for this specific video. And to tell you the truth, I really kind of got interested in Thor. I mean, he seems pretty badass. I mean, his powers like go on and on and on and on, and each power after it feels more invincible. And he seems like he has awesome story arcs. And based off the story arcs I've seen, it seems pretty logistic and badass, legit, if you will. So, could this mean that I have become a Thor fan over the course of making this battle? That could possibly happen. I really don't know. I mean, I'm still on the fence of being a Thor fan. But of course, the Marvel Universe and the Marvel fan base obviously are huge. So of course, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get tons and tons of comments in the comment section below, basically telling me, "Oh, you should read more Thor," or "You suck," or "You need to start. You stop. Giving it up to your DBZ bitches," or whatever. I know what you're gonna say, but at the end of the day, I've never been a Thor fan, but I can at least sit down as a non-Thor fan and just legitimately sit here and say that I have respect for the guy because he's obviously powerful and he has a lot of powers and abilities. And thus, the segue. Let's get into the powers and abilities. Let's start off with Thor. Now, Thor, obviously, his main power and choice is obviously Mjolnir, which is, of course, an invincible deity item that Thor uses majority of his battles, and he's mostly seen with it every single iteration of the character, and it's his most favored weapon of, the character of Thor. But of course gives him various powers and abilities, which I'll get into further later on in this breakdown. But of course, beyond that, Thor is half Asgardian, and of course half Elder God, which thus gives him a different type of physicality, and biologically he's a lot more superior to other Asgardians because of this blend of characters. And obviously beyond that, he also has the life force, which aka the God Force, which fuels Thor with godlike powers, which obviously must come from his mix of Asgardian and Elder God hybrid, obviously. And at the end of the day, Thor is a strong hero from the Marvel Universe. He's enormously physically strong. He's extraordinarily durable. He has the energy. He has the capability of manipulating power on par with characters such as Silver Surfer, and of course, with his mystical hammer, he is capable of opening passageways through time and space. And of course, he can block all sorts of energy blasts, and he can bend the elements at will. On top of that, he has superhuman strength. He has invulnerability. He has superhuman speed, stamina, senses. He has a healing factor. He also has super breath, which can control and create force winds and hurricanes and stuff like that, but I don't really see that as being a really big effect on this specific fight. But of course, he has the power to fly. Now, it's debatable as to whether or not Thor can fly without the hammer, but let's just say for the sake of the argument that, he needs the hammer to fly. But overall, he has the power to fly, and he can obviously manipulate energy. He can transcend dimensions. He can also create lightning, and he also has electrokinesis, which we've seen multiple times throughout not only the comic books, but of course in the movies and whatnot. And also he can create rain, and he has far more other abilities, obviously, like will and expert combat, mind resistance, knowledge of magic. He's a skilled tactician. He's a strong leader. The list goes on and on with Thor's powers and abilities. And of course, his biggest weakness is, of course, Warrior's Madness. For those of you who don't know what Warrior's Madness is, it's a very forbidden Asgardian law created by Odin, where the character who uses Warrior's Madness falls under a great penalty and just goes mad with rage, and it could increase Thor's power to great lengths and his stamina, but also threatens the character who uses it, specifically Thor, great sanity. It destroys his sanity and makes him more of a psychopath, and he can't really control what's going on. So it's his greatest ally, but also his greatest weakness at the same time. But overall, that's pretty much a brief synopsis of Thor's powers and abilities. And during the research of this character, there's no denying that he's a pretty big badass. And at the end of the day, I may not be a Thor fan, but I can respect the fact that he has all these awesome powers and abilities, and he fucking seems invincible based off, the brief breakdown. Alright guys, well let's move off of that and move into Gohan's powers and abilities. Now, for this specific breakdown, like all DBZ characters, I'll only be using their powers and abilities and techniques and transformations that have been seen in the manga and anime. But for your specific speculation on your own time, you can also use the video game version of each character that I've done in the past and right now. But as for this specific video, I'll only be using, of course, the anime and manga versions. But nonetheless, let's get right down to it. Of course, Gohan has the ability to fly, and we've also seen him be a very tactical, strong opponent, and he has multiple physical attacks, like the Angry Blow, Body Destruction, Super Soul Combos, Soaring Dragon Strikes, the Explosive Combination Punches, Ultimate Knuckles. He also has super strength and super enhanced durability, super enhanced stamina. He has multiple other types of physical attacks, and of course he's an expert swordsman. Moving over that, he has also multiple energy-based attacks like Ki Blast, Ki Manipulation, Masenko, and variations of the Masenko like the Double Masenko, and Super Masenko, Ultimate Masenko, so on and so forth. There's just multiple variations in that specific technique nonetheless. Moving off of that, he also has the Masenden and Special Beam Cannon, Golden Dome Attack, and of course the Kamehameha Wave and variations of the Kamehameha Wave, Super Kamehameha Wave, Father-Son Kamehameha Wave, the Ultimate Kamehameha Wave, Family Kamehameha Wave, so on and so forth, Super Explosion Wave, Blaster Meteor, Full Power Energy Barrage waves, mouth energy waves that he can do in the grade 8 form, and of course he has other multiple abilities like telekinesis, energy barriers and force fields, ki sense, super breath, and multiple other types of stuff like that. And of course, the creme de la creme of all Saiyan characters in the DBZ universe, their transformations, which of course he has the ability to transform to a Great Ape. He also has the ability to transform to a Super Saiyan, Super Saiyan 2, and of course the main Gohan that we're using today, which is Ultimate Gohan, which in its standard form has the power to surpass Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks and basically Super Saiyan 3 Goku. So that pretty much puts him on top. And also, you know, you can just go right down the list of various other video game versions that we've seen. But nonetheless, moving off of that, let's get into the breakdown of the fight itself. Now, beforehand, I really believed that there was no way Gohan could lose in a fight against Thor. That was pretty much my main agenda, was to kind of just embarrass Thor fans and just Thor as a character in general, because as I stated in the beginning of this video, I'm not really the biggest Thor guy, and I've pretty much always kept true to my statement as he's kind of like the weakest character, in my personal opinion, in the entire Marvel Universe in terms of, you know, popularity, storytelling, and just so on and so forth. But basically, over the course of researching the character and getting into in depth with his powers and abilities and all the great stuff that he's done throughout the Marvel Universe, it's been pretty interesting to see how this fight could go down. Now, first off, when it comes down to a fight between these two characters, Thor and Gohan, I personally think it comes down to three things. 1, physical strength. 2, technical skill. And 3, weaponry. Because for one, energy-based attacks will not work in this fight. Because for one, we already know that Gohan's main usage in fighting is of course ki blasts and whatnot. But at the end of the day, I find it very unlikely that any of Gohan's ki blasts can really damage Thor's body. And if it could, it wouldn't really help in the fight in general. And that goes the same for Thor. Thor doesn't have multiple energy-based attacks like Gohan or characters in DBZ, but I still believe that even with all the great lightning attacks that Thor could use with Mjolnir, of course, the Thor's hammer, his God Hammer, I still find it unlikely that that would have an effect on Gohan, because, of course, Gohan's been shot at with tons of attacks and have taken them head on since he was a little kid. So I'm pretty sure he can take on any type of energy-based attack that Thor can throw at him. Granted, he could take a lot of damage, and vice versa. But because of both characters being so extraordinarily durable, I find it very unlikely that any of their energy-based attacks would work. So it comes down to those three basic classes. First off, physical strength. Gohan's awesome. He's super strong. He's definitely stronger, one of the many strongest characters in all of DBZ, next to his father and Vegeta, Gotenks, and of course Majin Buu's characters, and of course the newest characters that we've seen in the Dragon Ball Z storyline, which are Beerus and Whis. But Thor seems to be definitely on par, or maybe even further than that. So I personally think it all depends on how strong Gohan can get in his power-ups, and also depends on how much damage he can inflict on Thor. Number 2, skill. Thor has been proven that he's definitely an expert warrior, and he's an expert tactician, and he's an expert combat. But that goes the same with Gohan. Even Gohan's biggest weakness is, of course, that he doesn't train a lot. And his other biggest weakness is that he specifically doesn't believe in fighting in general unless the people that he loves are in dire need. So there's that. But in this specific fictional fight, I believe that Gohan has more skill than Thor. I mean, you have to look at it realistically. Gohan has been trained by gods. He's been trained from the day he was a little kid all the way to his adult years, from expert martial artists, whether it be Piccolo, whether it be watching the multiple Z Warriors, whether it be training and fighting against multiple other characters like Frieza and Cell, by training with his father Goku, who is of course the greatest martial artist in fictional history, and on top of that, training with the Kais, who are the gods of the DBZ universe. So, on top of that, I have to go with Gohan on this. I mean, granted, Thor has been training, but I don't really see Earth-based training methods working against the training methods of DBZ characters. DBZ characters' training methods are far superior than that of regular human fighting abilities, and of course, whatever type of fighting abilities that Asgardians do, I'm pretty sure. People can debate that, but in my personal opinion, I think when it comes to technical skill, Gohan has more than Thor. That could be debatable, of course, because Thor is godlike and he's been living for, thousands of years, I guess, and pretty much has learned every single skill, whether it be medieval to modern. So I'm pretty sure on the skill side, it will definitely be a very interesting match. But on top of that, you have the weaponry. Now, Thor has his hammer, which is the #1 source of his power, and it's the #1 item that he uses in all his battles. Without Thor's hammer, Thor's pretty much nothing, and you can pretty much debate as to how much power Thor's hammer actually does give him. Does it really give him the power to fly? Does it really give him all this godlike power? Does it really make him faster and stronger and give him his electrokinesis, if you will? It's debatable, but I'm pretty sure that the hammer is pretty much the source of that anyways. Granted, without the hammer, Thor is a character to be reckoned with, but with the hammer, he's definitely surpassing that. Gohan, on the other side, has a weapon in hand that could combat against Thor's hammer. And of course, you guessed it, it is the Z-Sword. Now, the Z-Sword, before everybody gets started with me and being like, oh no, Z-Sword is so cheap in comparison to Thor's hammer, it's so stupid that you're comparing the two. It's not really that stupid. When you get into the simplicity and logistics of the Z-Sword, at the end of the day, it's a very powerful weapon. I mean, like, for one, it's been existing for millennias, millions of years. It's been existing in the DBZ universe. On top of that, no other being before Gohan was capable of picking it up or even breaking it. And on top of that, it has the ability to cut through anything, very similar to the Destructo Disc, which is of course one of the deadliest weapons, with the exception of Clagnite, which I think is, it's either Kachin or Clagnite, which is the specific metal material that Supreme Kai uses to train Gohan's swordsmanship with the Z-Sword. And if you remember specifically in the manga and the anime, when Gohan uses the Z-Sword against the Kachin, it actually breaks. It breaks completely in half. It's the hardest, densest material in the entire universe, according to the Kais. So that's the only way you can actually break it, because beforehand no other being was capable of breaking it except for this one specific material. Hell, even characters like Goku had a hard time just picking it up. So of course, the Z-Sword, even though it's not specifically used for fighting, it's a very strong item, and it could be very useful in this specific fight, and I'll tell you why. Number 1, physical strength. Thor is a dominant force, but so is Gohan. And the thing about Gohan is that another weakness he has is that he's very self-conscious, and he doesn't really believe himself. But let's say, for the sake of the argument, that Goku gets into his head and is like, you can do this. Gohan believes in himself, there's no limit that Gohan cannot surpass. So on the physical side, it's definitely a coin toss. Thor is definitely strong, and possibly can prove that he could be stronger. It really depends on how strong and tactical Gohan can get with Thor. But on that kind of side, I can go on both sides. Number 2, technical skill. I go with Gohan on this. Thor has a lot of skill, he definitely has tons of abilities, and has proved himself to be one of the most superior warriors of the entire Marvel Universe. Granted. But I have to side with Gohan on this. Even though Thor has proved himself, I just have to go with Gohan. His skill and abilities surpass anybody I've seen in the entire Marvel Universe. That's just my personal opinion. You don't have to agree with it, but that's just my personal opinion. Now you come to the part of the match that can be a game changer, that changes everything. Mjolnir versus the Z-Sword. Granted, I know what fans, especially Marvel fans, are going to say in the comment section below, oh, the Z-Sword cannot handle the strength of the hammer. And of course, Thor's hammer would just break right through it. But we need to remember the same thing I just stated prior, explaining the history of the Z-Sword. Number one, no one's ever been able to pick it up until Goku and Gohan. Number two, no one was ever able to break it in the entire, millions of years of its existence. And on top of that, the only material that was ever proven to break the Z-Sword which was a giant cube of Kachin, which is the strongest, densest material / metal in the entire DBZ universe. And I'm freaking pretty sure that Thor's hammer doesn't have any of that material, nor does Thor's freaking body have it. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong about that, but you could do the research in the comment section below. But that's just my brief little thing. So, okay, let's say for the sake of the argument, let's play devil's advocate, if you will. And let's just say that Gohan's struggling. Thor's definitely proven himself to be possibly stronger and physically more dominant in the fight in comparison to Gohan. And Gohan's really struggling. None of his energy-based attacks are working. And technically, he may have his match. But on top of that, you have the weapons. Thor is going to use that fucking hammer regardless of how the fight goes. Number two, the Z-Sword. When it comes into effect, it could be the greatest ally into this fight, because it's used for cutting. And if Gohan can successfully and precisely cut through his hammer, or any of Thor's freaking limbs, and successfully cut through it and destroy it, then Thor's done. He's done. That's the game changer. The Z-Sword could be the game changer in this specific fight. Physically, it's a coin toss. You can say Thor, you can say Gohan. Number two, on a technical aspect, I go with Gohan. You can tell me what you personally think. But on the weaponry, it's also a coin toss. But because of the brief history that we know about the Z-Sword, I have to go with the Z-Sword. Don't get me wrong, the hammer is awesome. It has so much awesome, epic, godlike powers and abilities. But it's been destroyed before. It's not like it's indestructible and completely invulnerable to any type of attack. We've seen it in the past where Thor's hammer has been split in half, cut in half, destroyed in half, destroyed into pieces, and hell, even Thor, even using it for powerful attacks, has destroyed it himself. So, it's not like Thor's hammer is all-powerful and can survive any type of, super power attack. So, on that basis, I believe that Gohan could destroy Thor's hammer with the Z-Sword. It's a coin toss. You could debate about it in the comment section below, saying like, oh no, Thor's hammer is stronger and more dense than the Z-Sword. The Z-Sword would just shatter just from contact. You can make that argument, but because the Z-Sword was specifically made for cutting and was also only destroyed through contact with Kachin, I can pretty much guess that the Z-Sword would destroy Thor's hammer, and then Gohan would be dominant in the fight and just blast him away with some kind of epic Kamehameha wave, and that would be the end of it. Or, on the plus side, there's also multiple other kind of ways that Gohan could win with the Z-Sword. Number one, he can cut off one of Thor's limbs. Now, granted, Thor is extraordinarily durable, and he has a healing factor. But there's something that a lot of people need to remember, that Thor's healing factor is not the same like other characters' healing factors in the X-Men universe and so on and so forth, where if Thor loses a limb, he can't grow it back. It's impossible. The second he loses an arm or a leg or a head, he's pretty much dead. It's not going to help. So that's the end game for him. So if Gohan can precisely use the Z-Sword to his advantage and cut Thor in half, or like cut off one of his limbs, that's a game changer. On top of that, let's say that does happen, but he wants to keep fighting because Gohan, we know that when he overpowers characters, he wants to, you know, torture them a little bit for pissing them off and fucking them over in the past. As we've seen that in fights with Thor, Perfect Cell, and of course, Super Boo. We've seen that in the past, so of course that may happen. And Thor's like, fuck this shit, I'm gonna kick this guy's ass right now. So he starts beating the shit out of Gohan. Okay. Here's the game changer. Gohan can pick up Thor's hammer. You have to be worthy and capable of wielding Thor's hammer. That's the point and the gist of the hammer. Now, granted, a lot of people are going to say, oh, that's bullshit. Gohan can't pick up the hammer. It's been seen in the past where multiple characters in the Marvel Universe have picked up the hammer. So, out of any character in the freaking DBZ universe who could pick up the hammer, who's more worthy than Gohan to pick up the hammer? There's only 3 characters in the entire DBZ universe who are worthy enough to pick up the hammer, which is A, Goku, B, Gohan, and C, Kid Goten. Those are the only characters who are worthy enough to pick up the hammer, and that's it. That's an endgame. The second he picks up the hammer, he has all of Thor's powers, and he uses it against them, and that's pretty much it. Thor may be stronger, he may be more physically dominant, hell, he may be even faster, especially due to the god powers that the freaking hammer gives him, and of course because of his physicality and biological formula, Asgardian/God, he's pretty much dominant in this fight. But if Gohan can precisely do exactly what I said, then it's endgame. It's a game changer. But of course, it's a coin toss. Thor could win, Gohan could win. It depends on your personal opinion at the end of the day. But in my personal opinion, I have to go with Gohan. Gohan wins. He's the winner, hands down. There's just multiple ways I can see Gohan winning. And then there's multiple ways I can see Thor winning. But when I tally them up, I have to go with Gohan. I mean, let's just say that, let's bring in energy-based attacks. Thor has energy-based attacks. He uses his lightning, he uses his electrokinesis, how he uses the weather attacks to beat the shit out of Gohan. That's not going to work. You want to know why? Because Gohan has telekinesis that he has used multiple times in the past in the anime and manga. And of course, on top of that, he freaking has energy barriers. All he has to do is power up and just freaking create some kind of energy force field to block all of Thor's lightning attacks. And that's pretty much done. That's it. And plus, because of his durability and plus of Thor's durability, either character could take either what damage, and it's just pretty much done. So at the end of the day, I go with Gohan, but let me know what you personally think. That's the point of these videos. Who do you think would win in a battle between the Almighty Thor versus Ultimate Gohan? I say Ultimate Gohan, but what do you personally think? Now, before I finish this specific video, I know what everybody's saying. God, you did it again, you DBZ bitch. Stop doing this to all us fucking video game and movie fans or whatever the fuck. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of that. So I'm going to say this once. I will be doing a who to win battle where it would be very, very, very close where a DBZ character could lose. Now, granted, I've done DBZ characters who have lost in the past, which is Chi-Chi. But there is a specific fight that I have in mind where both characters I love equally, where I really believe that regardless of how much I love DBZ, I personally think he or she could lose. And I will be doing that fight. But until then, that's pretty much all I'm going to give you. But nonetheless, I give you Ultimate Gohan as the winner. Personally, that's my opinion. Let me know what yours is in the comment section below. Who do you think would win in a fight? Now let's get into the teaser for next time's fight, which will be the beginning of Wave 2. And that's what I'm going to call it. I'm going to call instead of calling them seasons and season finales, I'm going to call them waves. You know, because it's not really a show, it's just a segment on my channel. So it would be kind of stupid for me calling this the season finale when it's not really a season, it's just episodes of a fucking segment on my channel. So, nonetheless, this has been the end of Wave 1 of my Who Would Win battles. I hope everybody enjoyed, and definitely go check out the playlist to all my various other freaking Who Would Win battles, ranging from DBZ characters to Marvel characters to DC characters and video game characters, not to mention cartoon and movie characters. So definitely check out my playlist, where I'm pretty sure you'll find a fight that'll be piquing your interest. And on top of that, let's get into the teaser for my next wave of battles, and of course the number one fight that I got a request for, which is of course Iceman versus Sub-Zero. Yes, a Marvel character versus a Mortal Kombat character. So that's going to be very interesting nonetheless. And on top of that, if you want to request any type of Who Would Win battle, definitely in the comment section below, let me know, and I'll definitely get to it. And of course, with Wave 2, I'll definitely be doing multiple other characters that I may have done in the past. Now, granted, my original idea was not to reuse characters, but just for the sake of the argument, if you have any characters that you are requesting for me to do that I've done in the past, I'll definitely try to change them up, so it's not like the same fight done again. So it's just like let's say for the sake of the argument that a character lost that I've done in the past, you want to request that character to fight again another character who you think could win, then we'll do that. You know, like characters who have lost, like Iron Man and the Titans. You know, you want to request those characters for another specific fight, then we'll bring them on to do that type of shit. But until then, this is the end of Wave 1. I hope everybody enjoyed all this awesomeness. Let me know in the comment section below what you personally thought about my first wave, and then leave me requests for Wave 2. And of course, let me know who do you personally think would win between Thor and Gohan, and definitely check out my prior fights. Specifically my last fight, which was against Mojo Jojo versus Koba. Hope you guys enjoyed. Subscribe to my channel if you've not done so already. And this has been John 12.